Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to What's the Point? Today's guest is a man that I am truly in awe of and inspired by. He has turned personal tragedy and loss into a lifetime purpose of helping others and taking care of others. With that, let me introduce to you Tom Wiley, who is the founder and president of the December 5th organization.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So Tom, this is truly a pleasure for me to speak with you because life often deals us things that we don't anticipate, that we don't want, and that we can't do anything about, and tragedy happens. And I don't want to discount that in the least. I suspect everyone listening today has had tragedy in their life to some degree or another. How we handle that and what we do with that becomes, to me, the real important life lesson. So let me ask you to start just by give us the top line of what the purpose of the December 5th organization is.
So the vision at the December 5th Fund is to forget cancer just for one day. And that was inspired by the last great day that my children and I had with my late wife before she passed away from cancer. Laura woke up that morning completely pain-free. She had spent most of October and November in bed, but on December 5th, she woke up and she had no pain. It was truly a blessing, a blessing from God. And because of that, we were just allowed to, spend time as a family. We sat down and had breakfast, a family breakfast. Sometimes we take that for granted, just how important that is as a family, just to sit down and talk. And we hadn't done that in a very long time. And just to sit there and catch up and just kind of joke around and talk about, what you want to do for the day was amazing. It was just something we weren't able to do. We put up Christmas decorations that day. We saw the lights at Tillis Park. We went out to dinner with friends. We had all these, what we like to call these small little moments that really just kind of made it special. And, sadly, we never had a day like that. Laura passed away about a month and a half later, January 16th, or January 14th of 2016 to be exact. And, after she passed away, I started to think about that day and how special it was to me and how it was to my family. And I started realizing too that, advertising and marketing, I've been doing it for about 20 plus years at the time, just wasn't really something fulfilling anymore. And as you like to say, I just didn't feel like I had my purpose. And that's when I started working on this idea where we would, work with families or, families whose lives are affected by cancer. We would send them out on an amazing day, whatever they want to do. Baseball game, party in the park, you name it, we would just plan this amazing day for this family. And then while they're out enjoying their day, we would send a team of volunteers back to their home, 30, 40, 50 people. And we would take care of all those chores that get ignored, house cleaning, laundry, lawn care, grocery shopping. So then when the family comes home, obviously it's a complete surprise to them. They won't know that we're doing this. And, they come home to this stress-free environment, and it's no longer this to-do list. And that's where the foundation for the December 5th and the idea, the basis came from to send these families out and then give them the much needed support they needed at home. And I pitched this idea to some friends. None of them really thought I was crazy, but they just like, oh, this is kind of a cool idea. Tom's doing this just to deal with his grief. We'll humor him and, we'll just see where he goes with it. So I asked them all to join my board of directors, and they helped me launch it. And, we tested this out. We helped our first family on December 17th of 2016. And we proved a very beautiful concept that, we can send these families out, give them an amazing day, but then send a community of people, people who want to help back to their home and take care of all those chores, and it was a pretty amazing thing once we tested it and realized that it was going to work. And from there, things just really kind of took off, and the organization grew. And we have helped actually over 50 families since that date, giving them either a combination of experiences in volunteer support or in-home health services, where we set them up with professional services like lawn care, house cleaning, meal prep services, all while they continue to go through cancer for treatment. Or treatment.
Well, the thank you for sharing that. The fact that you have been through it yourself.
Yes.
And you understand and relish the memories that you had on that day, which was, in your case, just kind of, I'll say serendipitous, but more of a God wink.
Yeah, exactly.
And I believe. But yeah, to bring that type of memory in the midst of what can be very devastating and an ongoing basis, not just to the person who's suffering from cancer, but to the family and the family members and extended family. I love what you do. What's especially nice is, if I understand your process, you actually spend time having discussions or quote unquote interviewing families to find out what it is they like to do, what would be a good memory for them. And so they're thinking you're doing something like that. And I think what you call it, while they're out having small moments, and then they come home to icing on the cake, if you will. That's terrific. So is that where it started? Was your original concept when you tested this, we're going to give them a special day and we're going to update their house, or did that evolve?
So it started just with a special day, just to give them a day out. And what inspired the second aspect of us to go into the home was actually my community, where people would just show up in my home and they would clean it for me. They would do the laundry, they would go grocery shopping for me. And I started talking to other families who had gone through similar situations to see if they had the same kind of support that I had. And a couple of them did, but not a lot. A lot of them never had a really true support system while they're going through treatment. And I realized that was something special, the community, the people that helped me. So that's where I came up with the idea of the whole volunteer aspect and the community aspect, because there's, I was blessed with an amazing community. There's obviously people out there just outside of my community that would be willing and able to do the same exact thing. So, that's when I decided to take it one step further. We talk as, like brand strategists, I'm going to put my advertising and marketing hat. How do you differentiate yourself from the, from the market and from the competition? It's like, there's a lot of organizations out there that do some amazing things with just, sending people out on experiences and things like that. But I can almost confidently say there's nothing like what we do, where we, while that family's out, we have this almost like an extreme home makeover, and, add this. And it was a nice little twist. And, when we first tested that concept, it was just, we'll mow the lawn, or we'll rake the leaves, or maybe we'll just clean the house while the family's out. But what we learned once we got these volunteers back to the home is that people, once they got those tasks on, they wanted to do more. It wasn't just, hey, let's the lawn's mowed. It was, we can re-landscape this entire this property. We just need 85 bags of mulch, things like that. And you realize that, when you're all brainstorming at that moment, on site on the property, that you can come up with some really amazing ideas and things that you can get done rather quickly within like 2 or 3 hours. And that's when we realized that, this kind of crowd participation, volunteer participation thing is really special too. And that's one of the things that we that we task our volunteers with on these days. When we go to the house, we tell them, hey, when you're in a bedroom and you see that, maybe they need new sheets or they need a whole new, like dressers or whatever, come to us, and, we'll make it happen. So you give you also give these volunteers kind of the reins to take, to really participate in these days and feel like they really contribute, and they're obviously contributing by cleaning and things like that, but, you're helping, they're helping you during this whole volunteer process to really give these families something special while they're out enjoying their day.
Yeah, which is another way that you're touching lives through your vision of the December 5th Fund. And that is, so the December 5th Fund is inspired both by you and your story with Laura and your children and what you went through, but it's, as you just pointed out, it's also inspired by the community that was there to support you.
Yes.
And it is reality that a lot of people don't have that community. So providing that is fantastic. But the other thing that it does is it allows all of the volunteers to go home at night and just feel better and more appreciative of what they have. And it occurs to me, Tom, that, the old saying, you don't know what you have till it's gone, kind of a thing. And you talked about so many little family type of encounters that you had lost out on. It's almost like right now, as we start to emerge from the impact of this pandemic, I am seeing people much more appreciative of things that they used to take for granted. And I think that's important to note, because, when we do things for others, it might seem like a little thing to us. But you have no idea how big it is to someone else. Share with us and the listeners some of those examples of, were there any particular instances where your community did something that they might have thought was small, but just really had a huge impact on you or your children for that matter? At the time, you and Laura, it was a family of 4. You have a boy and a girl.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So how did that impact your family?
Yeah. So, I still have photos that pop up in my Facebook memories that, at the time, you didn't quite realize how special it was, because, one of the things that, I'd like to, just kind of say is, the whole, my experience comes from being a caregiver, and caring for, children and, my late wife, Laura, while she went through this diagnosis. And one of the things as caregivers is, you're just expected to be the, to be the rock, to be the strong one and handle everything. And, while your spouse or your loved one goes through treatment, and it's, that's a lot of stress, and that's also a lot of responsibility on your shoulders as well. But you can't really complain about it. It's just one of those things that you just kind of keep your mouth shut and you just go about it, and you do the work. But the stress adds up. And like I tell these spouses who I meet with, the caregivers, that I bet. You're putting up a strong front, but I bet you spend a lot of time crying in the shower, and at that point, when you kind of say that kind of stuff with them, they let their guard down and they relax a little, because they realize that, oh man, this person gets it. They know what it's like to be, to be a caregiver. And so going back to your question though, is, I still have photos that pop up. I was trying to do everything. I was trying to keep the house in order. I was trying to get the kids to all their things, trying to make their life as normal as possible, while also, caring for Laura and getting her to her treatments and making sure she was okay. And you just gotta keep going and going and going, but stuff just adds up. You just can't do it all yourself. Well, like I said, one day I look out the window and there's this steady stream of people, like easily 20 people coming down coming down the sidewalk with rakes and yard bags and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? And they just showed up at the house. And, my first reaction was leave. I can do all this. I've got this.
Yeah.
Then I realized that I don't have this. This is this is too much for one person to try to shoulder. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as a caregiver, you can't. You're not supposed to show that. Like you're like, I got this. I can do all this. And they completely just clean the home. They rake the leaves. Everything that we do as an organization, and I realized how much I needed that, and how much it gave me back one of the most precious commodities of our lives as a family, which I talk about as an organization, which is time.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me time to spend with the kids, time to spend with, the important people, instead of, taking 5-6 hours out of my day to, try to fix things or try to do all that. And that was that moment when I took those photos. I knew it was pretty special, to have people just show up like that with, who knew you were struggling, even though you weren't admitting that you were struggling. And, just taking a lot off my plate, and it just, that goodwill from the community really translated really well over into, one of our core principles as an organization.
Well, what's important to point out to everyone listening, and frankly, a lot of people listening may know exactly what you're going through, because many of them have gone through or are going through what you have. But your focus is not just on the cancer patient, which oftentimes is where people place their focus. What you make the point of is the caregivers, the long-term caregivers have so much stress and so much responsibility, and they don't have typically, many of them don't have the outlet to, like you said, just to relax and let the guard down, open the curtains, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the caregivers version of the John Wayne syndrome, where, just the thing we grew up with, where, be like John Wayne, just be tough and don't show emotion and take, and that kind of thing. And it's male or female, it doesn't matter. That is difficult. I've seen it. I've been there. How about your children? How involved are they? If you don't mind talking about family.
Not at all. They are very involved. That was one of the things that when I was working through this whole idea for the organization, was I also wanted to be something that, children can participate in, to an extent, where they can come to these volunteer days and help out too, because, my kids, they're very actively involved in the organization whenever they don't have sporting events. I bring them along on volunteer days.
They have a lot of, I know your son's a very accomplished swimmer, and
yes,
girl's very active as well. So sorry to interrupt. But
they love the idea of the December 5th Fund. They love what it stands for. And obviously they obviously respect it very much so, because it's their dad, who started it, and they see photos of me or videos of me, and orchestrating these big days and everything like that. But, even my stepkids too, they've done volunteer days. We've done volunteer days as families and as a whole family. And it's, it's just a really cool and bonding experience, to, have your children help you out too. And they know that, particularly my kids, and now my other kids know as well, that this little bit of help that they're doing is going to go a really long way toward these families.
Yeah. So you mentioned stepkids. Let me come back to that in just a moment, because a quick follow up to your kids and their involvement. We've talked, Tom, about the impact and the benefit and everything else that your organization provides to the primary caregiver. Do your kids ever relate to children in families that are affected? I mean, does it get to that point? You mentioned that when you talk to people, they know you get it.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if your children have ever had the opportunity to share that kind of experience with other people's children.
So they actually haven't yet, but I could see, as they get a little older, and probably a little more like mature, that they could very well take those experiences that they had. My daughter she was pretty young when Laura was going through treatment, and even when she passed away, and that's all kind of still fuzzy to her.
Yeah.
But my son, he definitely has strong memories and visuals and things like that of everything too. And I can, knowing him as a person, I can certainly see him using that in positive ways, to be relatable to, other kids who are going through the same situation.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that you would never want to force on the kids. It's something that they
Yeah.
need to evolve to organically. And I'm telling you this as if you don't know it. I'm pointing that out for myself and the listeners. Now, let me go back to what you had just mentioned, stepkids. So that has a big implication of a story there about I'll call it rebirth or growth or new hope. Share with us the story of you now having stepkids, because it's a lot more than just that.
Oh, well, yeah. So I have a 15-year-old stepson, who is just amazing, just with athletics and things like that. And then an 11-year-old stepson too, who is, he's one of those kids that, he just loves everybody is probably the best way to put it. But he's also has intellectual disability. And when I first met my wife Chrissy, that was something that was new to me, just because I've never had to I've never had that in my life. It's probably the best way to put it. So it was a learning curve just to kind of learn how he interacts with people. And like things with personal space don't really exist with Ethan. He's a hugger, things like that. Yeah. And but it's taught me, just having stepchildren has also taught me that, I've got a lot more love to give, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Because I love these two just like they're my own is probably the best way to put it. They teach me a lot, and I learn a lot, to be a father, how to be a better father and things like that. So, that's one thing that I've learned.
Yeah. So part of the point I was trying to make, and I was way too subtle on it, so apologies.
Oh, sure.
But we don't end up with stepchildren if we don't end up with a new spouse. So, and I think that's significant, both if you're comfortable sharing that story, but it's also bigger picture. It's tremendous to see that you can still find love and life continues. So talk to us a little bit about that, will you, Tom, please?
Yeah. So Chrissy and I, we actually met on a dating app. Just one of those ones where it links you up, and we started chatting, and we had our first date on June 13th of 2017, and it was one of those dates that things felt right, I guess is probably the best way to put it. When you're talking to someone and it's not awkward, the conversation goes really well, and you kind of lose track of time and, things like that. And it was just an amazing date. It's probably the best way to put it. But we actually, as the evening got a little later, we kind of started talking about a lot more deeper things is probably the best way to put it. Things you wouldn't normally talk on your first date.
Yeah.
Mainly our faith, our, with religion, and also loss. We started talking about loss of, my late wife, and then also loss of her brother, Dave, who was was killed by a drunk driver.
Mm.
And, you know, those are really deep conversations to have on a first date.
Yes, they are.
That's probably not in the recommended category of things you talk about on your first date. Usually you just keep it at a surface level. But we really kind of started, you know, talking about that. And one of the things that we really connected that night about was I told her that I had actually lost my faith after Laura had died, because I just, you know, you go through so much and it just makes you question a lot of stuff. But I had stumbled upon what you call like a God wink, a musician called Jeremy Camp. He's a Christian rock musician, and it was about 2 weeks after Laura had passed away, and a Facebook recommendation came up. It said, you know, such and such likes Jeremy Camp. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? I've never even heard of him before. And I click on him, and I find out that, you know, he had also lost his wife to cancer, and but then, you know, how his faith had gotten a little rocky, but through music he had reconnected with God. And I started listening to his music, and I realized that this was exactly what I needed at that moment. You know, as you can say, it was a wink, it was a nudge, and you know, it reconnected me. And so fast forward to that date that night, we were talking about some of our favorite music, and I, you know, again, like, typically you don't mention Christian rock favorite musicians when you're talking about who your favorite musician. Usually it's, you know, like, you know, U2 or whatever. And I mentioned Jeremy Camp, and she's kind of paused, you know, she's like, no way, you know. And then that she out, and we, you know, show that we've got Jeremy Camp songs on our phone, you know, just to let each other know that we're not lying and crazy and like that, trying to make up stuff. And that's what really ultimately led to our conversation on loss, and how, you know, the Jeremy Camp's music helped us, you know, get through these tough times. And, you know, probably about a year or two down the road, we both got to meet him, which was
very cool.
Yeah, which was a really, really cool experience. You know, I actually got to have a little bit of a conversation with him, just saying how he and I kind of shared a similar path in life. And, you know, it was one of those things where he went from just kind of like, hey, nice to meet you, to like, oh, wow, you know, and then like, he just like, hey, can I get a hug? You know, and I'm like, oh, this is, wow, this is a little surreal, you know. And like, you know, we brought it in and just, you know, gave me this huge hug, and, you know, Chrissy was there, and, you know, we got to talk to him, and just kind of had this nice kind of like full circle, I guess you could say, experience of, you know, how we spoke about his music, which actually brought us closer together on that first date. And then, you know, we finally get to meet him, and I kind of tell him about our, you know, I guess you say, our love story and things like that. So
yeah, so you've gone through quite a lot, both difficult and celebratory. You know, this podcast, What's the Point? I focus a lot on purpose, and my belief is that our purpose evolves. We don't necessarily have just one purpose, but typically there's something that is at the core, our core value, that helps drive our purpose. What I see with you, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, is that as an advertising marketing person, knowing your work and knowing your belief, is that you are firmly committed to using that medium to highlight value to people, so that people could see the benefit of whatever it was you were working on, and somehow, if it made sense to them, they could use it. What you're doing now is delivering value to people in a totally different way, and I would argue perhaps more, if not more impactful, certainly a deeper, more personal way. Does that make sense, that from your perspective, that your purpose has kind of always been giving and helping others?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, as you know, like in advertising and marketing, you know, I'll put my brain hat on again. You know, it's when you're when you're selling a product, when you're trying to get people to, buy, you're trying to get people to buy into a lifestyle is probably the best way to put it. Set your tone all based off of what these archetypes are, so people can actually relate to them, and then they in turn want to buy your product. But where with the December 5th fund, it was no longer a, like, I guess you'd say I never had to really develop like an archetype or a strategy. I felt like I was always kind of a caregiver.
Yeah.
So when having a strong, digital marketing background and brand background, you always say for years, like to your clients, you gotta be authentic. You gotta really let people, in, so they can connect with your brand. And all I did with the December 5th one was just be transparent about my life. And, me as always kind of being a caregiver and someone that's always really giving. And I wrote to that, and it just a lot of our advertising and marketing just comes, if you want to call it that, it comes naturally because it's me, I guess is probably the best way to put it. So.
Well, yeah, it is, I guess, in the strictest sense, advertising and marketing, but in reality, it's public relations and communications of here's what we're doing and here's how we help people. So yeah, is it advertising and marketing? Sure. Is it to sell a product? Not really. Is it to let people know that there's a way to help and you can do that? Speaking of which, let's get right to that, because I think that's a real important thing. The December 5th Fund is, for those of you in the U.S., it is an official 503c nonprofit, fully, and all of the typical tax implications there.
Yeah.
So one way that you can help is, if you're in St. Louis, is you can physically be a member of one of the crews that goes out. If you're in St. Louis or not in St. Louis, is there a way, Tom, that people can donate financially? Is there a way people can donate? Are there any needed goods?
Yes, so they can go to December 5th, that's 5th.org, and donate money like through our donation platform on the website. They can also go through Facebook and go to our actual Facebook page if you just search the December 5th Fund, and you can donate through there. But one of the cool things about if you go through Facebook is you can go into our photo albums, and we do before and after photos of all these homes. So, one of the things that we do during the entire process is we get access to the home early in the planning stage, and we go in without the family knowing usually, and we take photos of, basically we take photos of everything that we need to fix and all the work that we need to do. And it also tells us how many volunteers we're going to need for that effort. So we get all those photos. And then once we're finally complete with that volunteer day, we take all the after photos and we put all those before and after photos up at the same time up on Facebook. And you can really see the transformation of what we do back at home while the family's out enjoying their day. So website, you can go to donate and actually learn more about our programming, and then Facebook, you can see a lot of the Facebook and Instagram actually. You can see a lot of our before and after photos. One of the things I would like to I guess bring up. So once we do give these families this amazing day and this day of support, they then get set up with a 3 or 6 month support plan. And what that entails is weekly meal prep services, weekly laundry services, lawn care every week, house cleaning every couple of weeks, dog waste services, childcare services. And they get that, like I said, for 3 or 6 months while they continue to go through treatment for cancer. And that's all provided by our professional service providers. And what we do is we manage that entire process for the family, and all they have to do is just kind of schedule it. Like say, hey, we need our house clean, on this date every 2 weeks, or here's our laundry. They put it out on the porch. Our laundry service comes, picks it up. 2 days later, it's back neatly folded and ready for the family to put away. So that was a program that we had actually developed. I think it was our second or third family, because they didn't need a volunteer effort. So we're like, okay, well, what else can we do? I mean, what's a little extra help that we can give them then? And that's when we kind of came up with this, like almost like an a la carte, of in-home support services for the family to choose from. And it's opened us up to numerous grant opportunities too, because you can assign costs to all these services and go, okay, so 12 families, it's $7,500 per family for 3 months, and double that for 6 months, and then you can fill these grants out and show these foundations and these corporations, and this is exactly what it costs, and this is where your money goes. So that program has opened us up to a lot of great grant opportunities.
Good. So are the professional service providers also on the website?
So yeah, they would be under our sponsors page, which we probably do need to update. But yeah, if you go there, it'll list some of the companies that we work with.
Yeah, and my thought there, again, putting my marketing hat back on is, so one way that you can help the December 5th Fund is by helping their sponsors. So if you're local to St. Louis or whatever, supporting sponsors is always a good thing when they are doing great support themselves. So that's for the December 5th Fund, and that's in general. So when you see charitable initiatives being funded by companies, it's, in my opinion, well worth considering whether or not it makes sense for you to support that sponsor.
Yeah, one of the cool things we also do with schools in the area is they'll host cleaning supply drives for us. So we provide them with a basic list of supplies that we typically cleaning supplies that we typically use at these homes, and then they do a week long or a month long cleaning supply drive. And at the end of the month, we pick up pallets and pallets of cleaning supplies and put it in our storage unit. And it just that cuts down our costs a lot by getting people to donate cleaning supplies too.
Yeah. So I've talked a little bit with you, Tom, about how people can contribute if they're in St. Louis. The concept is really wonderful. And cancer isn't exclusive, obviously, on a geographic basis.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you've received requests from people well outside of St. Louis to either help or to ask what can they do in their area. Address that for us, please, because I mean, this podcast goes nationally and frankly internationally. How can someone build on what you're doing here in St. Louis?
So that's actually something that we're working on right now. That was actually what we were going to really primarily focus on in 2020, but obviously COVID-19 changed that. Our 3 and 5 year goals have us in other cities is probably the best way to put it. And we were really going to start spearheading that in 2020, which now we're going to start now in 2021. So we're starting to extend our reach into the Southern Illinois area, further than, like 25 miles, and kind of test the market to see what, what's associated with, starting a chapter here without completely relying on what we would consider our main chapter, the St. Louis chapter. And our hope is within 3 to 5 years to start having chapters elsewhere in the United States. Right now, what happens right now when a nomination comes in from someone out of state, we do inform them that we don't serve that area yet. But then we take a note just to see, obviously if you start getting, maybe higher concentrations from, say, the Chicago area, that we need to heavily consider, starting a chapter there. So what we then do is we go to work as a team to see how we can just, tell them that they were nominated, but also say, hey, we're here. We understand that you need some help. So one of the things we did last week, we had a nomination coming from Niagara Falls, New York. The program coordinator called up there and just kind of called around and then found a meal prep service up there, and we've set this family up with meal prep services, just to make life a little easier at home for them back there. And that's one of the cool things with our support plan, the Helping Hand support plan with these professional services, is that it has allowed us to extend our reach, into other cities, and begin to, kind of, let people know that, there's this cool organization in St. Louis that is growing at a very fast rate that, hopefully, could someday be in your area. So,
Yeah. Well, Tom, you are, as I started off, you are just a magnificent example of addressing and accepting tragedy and then saying, we have to move forward. What can we do? And for that, I applaud you. And you're, again, an inspiration. Specific to what I talk about with the purpose principle, so your purpose of helping others has remained true. But I know that in your case, now that you have this purpose pretty clearly delineated, it's ignited your passion, and your passion fuels it. So they kind of go hand in hand. But again, It starts with the purpose, and you're nothing if not persistent. It is so gratifying to see how much good you put out into the community, how many lives you touch. It's also very rewarding to see how your life has been touched and how you've been blessed, and your now new blended family. And for that, I literally thank God, and I applaud you. So pulling all of that together, and you should know this question's coming, to end our conversation, what's the point?
What's the point? I touched on it earlier. When work doesn't feel like work, you're obviously, you're doing something right. You've found your path. Your point, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. That when I wake up every morning now, I know that whatever I'm gonna do today, I know it's gonna probably change. It's gonna change someone's life. It's probably the best way to put it. Whether it's just something really small, some little service that we're going to put in place for a family, or if it's something big where we're orchestrating, 50 people to come back to, this family's home. It's just really rewarding to know that what you're doing, it has a domino effect, and it not just helps the family, but it helps other people too. It helps their family, and it's, the chain reaction that, one small little gesture has is extremely rewarding. And we say this a lot, that sometimes the small moments turn into the big moments. Mm-hmm. And we can't stress that enough as an organization. That no small gesture is going to go unnoticed, because it has the potential to be huge. Just like December 5th, at that time it was just an amazing day with my family, but you didn't realize what it would turn into and how it would help drive my purpose. Realize that, this is probably what I should have been doing all along. It's probably the best way to put it. Unfortunately, tragedy had to direct me or put me in that direction. Because like I said, I've always been a really giving person, but, to turn tragedy into something meaningful to help me find my purpose. I do thank God for that aspect. And I know that's kind of weird, to thank tragedy, but, it helped me realize a lot about who I was as a person, and who I wanted to be, and actually where I wanted to go with my life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I will just clarify that those people that know me well know I don't like the word should versus could. You should have been doing things. No, you shouldn't have been doing things, because everything we go through in life, we had to go through to get to the point we're at in our life right now.
Yes.
So you were doing what you were called to do and what you had to do now. So yeah, anyway, I won't go on further because you made the point so eloquently, but I do have thoughts on that. And I think the biggest takeaway I want everyone to think about is, life does happen. We all have experiences. Some of them are good. Some of them are tragic and arguably devastating. But at the end of the day, if we're able to say, what was the point? What should we learn from that? What can we learn from that? What could we learn from that? And what can we do with it? Then we have the opportunity to really share that experience in an impactful way. And what you just talked about, Tom, is there's no way of quantifying the impact of the ripple effect of small things. And as one of my earlier guests, Barry Engelhardt, says, it's the small things done consistently that can change the world. Yes. And you are changing the world by touching lives. And it's more than one life at a time. But I'm so very happy and grateful that you gave us your time today. I wish you continued success. If people want to learn more and or donate, the website is December5th.org. That's December, the number 5th. It'll also be in the show notes. Tom, thank you for your time and continued success in your efforts, because they're phenomenal.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking. It was great.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.